What's going on YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of Then We Eat. On this week's episode, we're going to be making something a little more fun. This week, we're going to be doing fried chicken and waffles. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our chicken out and we're going to put it in the bowl. I'm going to leave my chicken whole for now and we'll pound it later just in case the buttermilk breaks it down a little too much. So we'll leave it whole for now. Let's add enough buttermilk to this to completely cover our chicken. Let's say that should be good there. We'll put this in the fridge and we'll let it soak for a couple hours. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pre-make that sauce for the top of our chicken and our waffles. So this sauce is going to be for both the chicken and the waffles. We'll have the heat for the chicken, the sweetness for the waffles. It'll all combine together perfectly. We want to slowly and lowly heat this sauce. You don't want to heat the honey too quickly. You could caramelize it and you'll definitely burn it if you get it too hot. So we'll get that on very, very low. Then we're going to add our mixture. So we've got about a half a cup of honey, a quarter of a cup of hot sauce, and a tablespoon of butter. We're going to add that to our pan and we're going to slowly cook that down. Our honey was a little bit older, so it's kind of crystally. Nothing wrong with it. Just means it's going to take a little bit longer to kind of melt down, just because you got to melt down those crystals as well. There we go. You can see it's starting to melt down and those crystals are starting to disappear there now. All right, I'd say we're well combined there now. I'm going to go ahead, transfer it back to the measuring cup it came out of, and set it aside for now. Just before dinner, I will stick it probably in the microwave just to reheat it and get it hot again. But for now, we'll just let those flavors blend together and get nice and tasty and ready for dinner. Hot sauce is done. Let's get working on our chicken dredge. The dredging is actually fairly simple. 2.5 cups of flour and a whole pile of spices. So we're going to go ahead, we'll add our spice mix to our flour. Then we're going to give that a stir. That should be well mixed. Let's set that aside and we'll move on to our waffles. So to start things off, I have 2.25 cups of flour, and to that we're going to add 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 3 tablespoons of sugar, a half a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of cinnamon. We'll give that a quick mix. We're going to set that aside for now and we'll move on to our wet ingredients. So the first thing we need to do with our wet ingredients is we need to separate a couple of eggs. We need egg whites and egg yolks. So all you need to do, just separate the egg from the yolk. So just crack it, pour it into your hand, and just keep going back and forth until all the white falls through your hand, and then throw the yolk in the bowl. Basically, like I said, just start, crack the egg, separate it, then take the white, and you're gonna tip the whole egg over, pour it into your hand. Separate your fingers a little bit so the white can start running, and then just keep passing it back and forth between your hands until, as you saw, that white fell through, no white left. Yolk into the bowl. I'll go ahead, I'll do the second one, and we'll see you in a minute once I'm finished. Now that we've got our eggs and our yolks separated, set the yolks aside and we're gonna whip up our whites. What we're looking for is some stiff peaks to form, and then we'll be able to fold that into our waffle mix later. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit here. I'm going to use a hand mixer. If you don't have one, no big deal. You can use a whisk. It just means a lot more physical labor than using one of these. Either way, we'll get the same results. Alright, I'd say that's good there. As you can see, it's very much kind of like a whipped cream. I'd say that's perfect, just like that. So you set that aside too, and we'll start mixing the rest of our wet ingredients. I've gone ahead, I've measured out 2 cups of buttermilk into a measuring cup. To that, I've added a half a cup of vegetable oil and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Now we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna add those 2 yolks I separated a couple minutes ago. Then we're gonna stir that together. I have the hand mixer out still, so I'm going to mix it very slowly with this, just looking to kind of beat those eggs up. right, so let's go ahead. Let's add the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients. We'll give that a stir together. Once you've got all the wet and dry ingredients well mixed together, we're gonna add a couple of secret ingredients. I guess secret ingredient really isn't the right word, but there are a couple of extra ingredients we're gonna add to this waffle mix today. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna add 3/4 of a cup of cheddar cheese and 3/4 of a cup of bacon. The cheddar cheese I went ahead and shredded already, and the same goes for the bacon. I chopped this up and fried this up earlier today. So we'll go ahead, give that a stir. I'd say that's well mixed together. Now it's time to fold in those whites we whipped up earlier. We'll just take them, we'll add all the whites right into the bowl. And what we're gonna do with these is we're gonna fold them in. You're not really whipping and stirring, you're more kind of folding. You're trying to mix it in without disturbing those whites too much. So just take it, kind of give it a fold, take it, give it a fold, and just keep doing that until your whites are pretty well blended in there. All right, I'd say we're good there. As you can see, adding in that whites really moistened up your batter. What that egg white is gonna do, it's gonna make your waffles much more light and much more fluffy. While we wait for our waffle iron to heat up, I should point out, I have gone ahead and taken the chicken out already. You need to leave it on the counter for about a half an hour before you start doing anything with it. You want to bring that back up to room temperature and not cook it from chilled. Just as our waffle maker comes up to temperature, one of the things I am going to do is I'm going to brush a little bit of butter onto it just to try to keep the waffles from sticking to the pan. To be perfectly honest, I'm not exactly sure how much I should be putting in. So the first couple might be a little small or might be a little big. We'll kind of adjust it as we go. We'll let those cook for about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll see how they turn out. We've been about 4 or 5 minutes now. Let's open it up, see how things are coming along. Well, first thing I noticed, I didn't add enough batter. I'm not sure they're quite done yet, but they are coming along nicely, and they look really good. I'm gonna go ahead and pull those out. I have preheated an oven to 325 degrees, so I'm gonna transfer those to the oven. They should continue to cook a little more, so you don't need to finish the cooking process at this point. Stick them in the oven, let them finish there, and then that'll keep them warm while you finish the rest of your waffles and your chicken. So our waffle iron is back up to temperature. I'm gonna repeat the process you just saw, make at least 6 or 8 waffles, then we'll see you when it's time to cook the chicken. The waffles are done. Now it's chicken time. So we'll just pull the chicken out and just drain off any excess of the buttermilk. Then we'll put it on a cutting board with a piece of plastic down. We're gonna fold the plastic over top. That's more or less just gonna kind of keep the juices intact and keep the hammer from getting too disgusting, we'll say. What you're looking to do is pound your chicken out flat. You want a nice flat piece of chicken. You don't want a piece of chicken that looks like this. It becomes far too difficult to cook it because you've got this thick end over here that it's going to take a long time, and then this thin end over here that will take significantly less time. So if you can pound it flat, much less issues cooking it. I'd say that should be pretty good there. Looks fairly flat and consistent. Let's pound out our second one. Get dredging. All right, the last thing we are going to do before we dredge it is we're gonna cut our chicken in half. Just give us 4 smaller pieces instead of these massive chicken breasts. So I'm gonna be using this tiny little knife to cut up the chicken, only because this knife is already dirty, just trying to keep the dishes down. I would highly recommend using a much bigger knife normally to cut this. So what we're looking to do is just cut it roughly in half. Now this side is bigger and it does have the tender, so I may go a little less than half just to try to even it out some. All you're looking to do, just cut them as close to even as you can. So just take your piece of chicken, drop it in that dredging, then just keep flipping it back and forth until the whole thing is totally covered in flour. Deep fryer is up to temperature. It's time to start cooking the chicken. But before we do, I must apologize for the bad audio for the last 30 seconds or so. Gotta love technology. It's great when it works. Pain in the butt when it doesn't. Unfortunately, the SD card was full, so the camera that runs our microphone was off and unfortunately didn't record it. So the only recording audio we have is from the iPad and Android phone microphones, and it's not quite as good as these ones, unfortunately. So I'm gonna put the deep fryer basket down and try to swim it in. Just avoids any chance of the chicken sticking to the basket. You just take your chicken and just kind of go back and forth, kind of get a nice crust on it, and then drop it in. So let that cook for about 7 to 10 minutes, then it should be ready to go. The chicken's been about 10 minutes, it should be good and cooked. We'll go ahead, we'll pull it out. Got some chicken, got some waffle, got some sauce. Let's see how it tastes. It's not too bad. The waffles are quite nice. The cinnamon flavor, the vanilla, very nice flavor. The only thing I would say about them is that I left them in the toaster oven far too long. Get a nice flavor of the cheese. You can taste that bacon in there. Nice hot sauce, you get a kick, but it's still nice and sweet. This is very, very good. So that's it for this video. Hit like if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share with anybody you know, and let us know down below. What would you like to see us cook next? Oh, and don't forget, first we cook, then we eat. So good.